You've heard the expression over the years in a gathering maybe similar to this. Someone will stand up and say, our next speaker needs no introduction. In fact, when the President of the United States is introduced, they simply say, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. So I'm not going to introduce Paul J. Meyer, our founder at this time. He was the youngest member of the $1 Million Roundtable in insurance. For you that possibly are not from the West or from the United States, you have to know that this is an achievement that very few receive in their life, or they attain it in their life, and he was just a young man. He led the largest exclusive ordinary insurance company in the nation and the largest exclusive weekly insurance company. And by that time, when I first met him, he was the highest paid insurance salesman, just as a young man, in all of the United States. He built the largest insurance agency. He recruited 820 life insurance salespeople in only 12 months. It's difficult for me over the years as I've worked with him in these conventions to be in the hall and someone would know me and they would hear the goals and they would say, does he really believe that we can do that? They really don't know Paul Meyer when he gives a challenge and says, you can do this, because I had difficulty when I first met him and realized that he had recruited 820 life insurance salespeople in 1 year. And listen, he did all of that before he was 25 years of age. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, over half a century ago, he started what is now a multi-billion-dollar self-improvement industry. His name is always at the forefront. He was the first person to condense material and put it on reel-to-reel tape. He did this in the 1940s and the early 1950s. And since starting SMI 43 years ago, he has written 24 of our full-length goal-setting motivation and leadership programs. In fact, he's a New York Times best-selling author, and if you don't have a copy of his latest book, Unlocking Your Legacy, it's also a bestseller. You speak to me and I'll make sure that you'll get a copy, and I can give you a special price. He's one of only a handful of people in America to receive every award given by the Boy Scouts of America over the last half century. In fact, he's received every award to be given by the Boys and Girls Clubs of America likewise. He has received the Distinguished Sales Cross for Great Britain, the Distinguished Sales Leadership Award from South Africa, and the Sales Leadership Award for the U.S. along with Art Linkletter. I was privileged to be there when he received that award. He has been the speaker for the National Life Underwriters in all 50 states and a keynote speaker to 19,000 people at the national USJCs. He wrote the leadership program that has been used by the United States JCs for 30 years. I could go on and on and on, but I would say to you that Paul J. Meyer is a family man. He and his wife Jane have 5 children and 15 grandchildren, and all of them live within 2 hours of each other. And let me say this in conclusion. I'm just sharing this information with you that I want you to have. Paul J. Meyer is a giver. I'm just old enough to know the difference between givers and takers. And sometimes what I do when I'm making my way through life, it's all that I can do to keep my silence when I'm with a lot of takers. But this man is a giver. The Paul J. Meyer Family Foundation has given tens of millions of dollars to over 34 charities and ministries. He knows that everything is God's by right of creation. And he unashamedly says over and over again that he gives all the credit for everything that he has done in his life to his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. His number one major goal in life is to honor God with everything he has, everything he writes, and everything that he accomplishes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to present to you my friend and your friend, our founder, Mr. Paul J. Meyer.
Todd, did you do that? I sure love you. I love you. I appreciate you. God bless you. You're going to do great.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Well, I have some good news for you. I made it this year. Last year I got to the convention and was ill in the hotel, and Jane got us an airplane and flew me back to Waco. I stayed in intensive care a few days, and with a positive attitude and some good help and people praying, I got out and I've done some hard work on staying healthy and staying alive. And I owe that to my Creator and to Jane. Well, it's my hope and wish and desire that the message I plan to give you in the next few minutes will be the most important one I've delivered in maybe 20 or 30 years. I'm a salesperson, so if my mouth's open, I'm selling. I mean, I just can't help it. I've tried to open my mouth and not sell, but I haven't been able to achieve that. So you'll have to forgive me for that. Let me ask you a few questions, and that's always a good way when you want to sell somebody something. You need some information about what they're thinking about. Why do our programs change people's lives? Can all of you associated with us explain that very clearly and succinctly to anyone that might ask? What is different about an SMI program as compared to the competitors? And we have competitors. What is different about an LMI program and the scores of other leadership programs and seminars? Why do people say our FMI programs so positively change kids' lives? And here's a good one, and I'll ask you this. Do you know how have we outlasted all of our competitors for 43 years and we're still gaining momentum? How have the PJM authored programs outsold all other authors, not just living, but in history? So that would bring the question, or beg the question in my mind, what numbers to the combination for the vault of success have we found that our competitors have not found? What is the basic foundational principle of all of our programs? What is our magic recipe for success? What is our secret ingredient? Whether it's going back to the 1960s, the 1970s, 80s, or we can go forward to 2020 or 2050, the principles in our programs are infallible, timeless, and proven to work in the past, now, and in the future. Our programs are designed to empower people to take charge of their own lives and to change their own futures. I have to be careful when I call something magic or say it's a secret, because people think that's something mystical. To avoid any misunderstanding, I want to be sure that the word magic and secret of what we go through in our programs for the benefit of our customers is very, very clear. Unfortunately, just because something is clearly defined does not mean it will be accepted and put to use. The most important, fundamental, and basic idea of our programs is often overlooked, sidestepped, and ignored. And I hope all of you that are associated with us as master licensees, general directors, and sales associates heard what I just said. The most important, fundamental, and basic idea of our programs is often overlooked, sidestepped, and ignored. As a society of individuals, I think all of us associated with these companies are aware that we are creatures of habit. All information, whether in book, video, seminar, speech, or conversation format, is filtered in our minds through our past conditioning and present mental attitude, which for the most part has been severely abused, shortchanged, misaligned, and constricted. That's tough. As a result, most people spend a lifetime floundering in a sea of mediocrity. They achieve only a fraction of what they are capable of achieving. They accept too little too soon. and thus live their life in a rut. They filter everything through their indecisive, negative thinking, closed-minded, judgmental, and chloroformed brain condition. You want to say that again? Okay. We filter everything through our indecisive, negative thinking, closed-minded, judgmental, and fear-ridden mindset, thus living their lives in a chloroformed brain condition. And that's pretty tough. We put on a judge's robe when we read, listen, and watch, which is totally unfair to our mind, our hearts, and most particularly, our futures. This produces a life of mediocrity. It's the worst possible case of self-abuse. My hope and prayer when I started these companies was that these programs that I wrote would take people out of their rut and their life of mediocrity, and some way, somehow, awaken the sleeping giant within them. Some way, somehow, to find that God-given potential that's inside of every one of us that wants to come out. That's what my life's about, and that's what your life's about if you're associated with this company. Mediocrity is flying low to the ground like a sparrow when you could soar like an eagle. Mediocrity is being a teaspoon when you were born to be a steam shovel. Mediocrity is playing on a harp that has only one string when our Creator gave us 1,000 strings to play. Mediocrity is painting Technicolor pictures with only one color. Mediocrity is being a bantam when you were born to be a giant. Mediocrity is wishing upon only one star when we're capable of discovering incredible galaxies. I hate mediocrity, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. What is the result of a mediocrity-type mindset? Only an extremely small percentage of what we read, hear, or see has even a half a chance to be remembered, let alone being allowed in our subconscious mind, accepted, and then actually applied and put to use. It's my competition. I'm really proud of that because none of the other speakers that have been up here this morning have been able to motivate that child to come alive and show its exuberance. When we attend a seminar or read a book, we are listening and reading with our present mental attitude, which for the most part is full of fear, worry, indecision, and negative thinking, along with a great deal of prejudgment. When you listen, you actually hear 100% of what comes into your ears. But by the time it goes through your mental funnel of your subconscious mind, where you can accept it and believe it, understand it, and use it, it has been reduced to only about 10% of what came in your ears, or of what you actually heard. So the question I think any of us would ask, is there a better method than this method? I say yes, if you would listen with an open mind, withholding all prejudice and preconceived ideas, with a learning attitude that is excited about gaining new information, with positive expectancy, with a keen ear, and listen closely, with a keen ear of not only what's being said, but what it can trigger in your imagination and creativity that can spark you to have that aha experience. And what is an aha experience? Well, that can explode potentials and possibilities you never dreamed or thought of before. Now turn the mental intake funnel upside down. Then instead of getting only 100% of what you are hearing or reading, by the time it goes through your listening filter system and into your subconscious, It will ignite and explode your creativity, your imagination, your ingenuity, your inventiveness, your resourcefulness. And then what's the result? It comes out not only 100%, but 10 times that amount in new creative, inventive thought. This is the reason when we see one person outperform another person double, that's why. When you see one person outperform another 10 times, that's why. When you see a person outperform a group of people singularly 100 times, that's why. That's actually the way you should be listening and taking notes during this convention celebration. It's also the way you and every one of your clients should participate in whichever one of our programs that you're using. You then become a possibility listener, a possibility thinker, a possibility participant, and a possibility doer. This will cause permanent change of attitude, behavior, and result. I've used this formula and this system when I listen to a lecture, go to a seminar, read a book, hear a sermon, or listen to a song, always expecting the experience to fire up my creativity and turn me on and get that spark, that genius something that's inside of every one of us that I know will come out if you believe it'll come out and you ask it to come out. Let me give you an example. One Sunday I was attending a church service in Waco, Texas, many, many years ago. I don't even remember what it was now. I couldn't remember the sermon because you remember I only listened to it one time. On my way home, I turned on the radio, and I heard a song entitled, "It's a Great Big Beautiful World." Well, the song inspired me. I pulled off the side of the road and took out a pad and started making notes, and I wrote an outline for lesson number 1 of the first SMI program I wrote. That program is now sold, listen to this, several $100 million worth, and was the number 1 selling self-improvement course in the world for over 30 years. So I've often asked myself this question: what would have happened if I had attended that church service with a negative attitude, was judgmental, worried about something, full of prejudice, preconceived ideas? Well, I can give you the answer. I would have not left inspired, not creative. My listening intake funnel would be the same as the